When the single mother decided to bet everything on an abandoned hotel, she believed it could be the fresh start she desperately needed. But on the first night, as she climbed up to the penthouse covered in dust and silence, something made her steps freeze. In the corner of the room, there was an object that no one, absolutely no one, should have left behind. And when she touched it, she understood that this purchase hid much more than a good deal. The air grew heavy, as if the walls were waiting for her reaction. She felt the presence of something unseen, only perceived, dense, ancient, disturbing. The revelation inside that penthouse would transform her life and tear out secrets that had been buried for years. And in that instant she discovered that some places don't want to be saved. They want to be left forgotten. Claire Brennan's hands were shaking when she signed the papers 3 weeks earlier. The real estate agent had called it a steal, the Grandview Hotel. 12 stories of Art Deco bones and broken dreams sitting on the edge of Route 9 in Ashford, Pennsylvania. The kind of place that once hosted senators and movie stars back when the steel mills still breathed smoke into the sky. Now it was hers for $73,000 and a prayer that the bank loan wouldn't crush her before she could flip even one room into something livable. Her daughter Mia was 7. Too young to understand bankruptcy, too young to know that Mommy's credit cards were maxed and the apartment lease was ending in 40 days, but old enough to ask why they were moving into a building that looked like it came from a scary movie. Claire told her it was an adventure. She said that with enough paint and love they could turn ghosts into guests. Mia didn't look convinced. The first 2 weeks were demolition, ripping out water-damaged carpet, pulling down ceiling tiles that crumbled like stale bread. The lobby had potential. The restaurant on the ground floor could be salvaged, but Claire avoided the upper floors. Something about the 11th and 12th levels made her skin crawl, the penthouse especially. The real estate agent had mentioned it only once, said it hadn't been entered in over a decade. The previous owner had kept it locked. When Claire asked why, the agent just shrugged and changed the subject. But tonight, with Mia asleep in the makeshift bedroom they'd set up in the old manager's office, Claire decided it was time. She needed to know what she'd actually bought. The elevator didn't work, so she took the stairs. Each floor smelled different. Mold on 3, something sweet and rotten on 7. By the time she reached the 12th floor, her flashlight was flickering and her breathing had gone shallow. Now here's the part where I need you to do something for me. If you're watching this and you feel that tension I'm describing, that pull to know what happens next, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what city or state you're watching from. I want to know where my listeners are, because what Claire found in that penthouse, it's the kind of thing that could happen anywhere, in your town, on your street. So let me know you're out there, and let's keep going. The penthouse door wasn't locked. That was the first wrong thing. Claire pushed it open with 2 fingers, and it swung inward on hinges that didn't squeak. Shouldn't everything squeak in a place this old? The air inside was cold, not winter cold, something else. The kind of cold that lives in root cellars and morgues. Her flashlight swept across the room, furniture covered in white sheets, a grand piano in the corner, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the highway, now just a ribbon of distant headlights. And then, on the far side of the room near the window, she saw it. A crib. Not antique, not dusty, new. Claire's heart kicked against her ribs. She walked toward it slowly, her boots leaving prints in the thin layer of dust on the hardwood. Everything else in this room was coated, but the crib was clean, pristine, white bars. A mobile hanging above it, with little wooden stars that turned slowly, even though there was no breeze. She reached out, touched the railing. It was warm. Her hand jerked back. There was something inside the crib, a blanket folded neatly, and beneath it, the edge of something else. Claire's fingers moved on their own. She pulled back the blanket. A journal, leather-bound, expensive, the kind someone carries when they think their thoughts matter. She opened it to the first page, and the handwriting was looping, elegant, feminine. If you're reading this, you bought the hotel. That means Robert finally let it go. Or he's gone. Either way, you need to understand what this place takes from people. Claire's throat tightened. She flipped to the next page. My name was Evelyn Marsh. I was 29 when I came here. Robert Marsh was my husband. He bought the Grandview in 1998, said it would be our legacy. I believed him. I believed a lot of things back then. The entries went on. Evelyn wrote about the hotel's glory days, about the parties in this very penthouse, about the businessmen who came through, the secrets traded over whiskey in the bar downstairs. But then the tone shifted. The handwriting got tighter, more frantic. October 14th, 2001. I told Robert I was pregnant. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He said the hotel needed him more than ever. The economy was bad, bookings were down. He started sleeping in the office on the 8th floor. I started sleeping here, alone. Claire turned pages faster now. The story unfolded in jagged pieces. Evelyn had the baby. A girl. Named her Sophie. But Robert barely acknowledged her. He was obsessed with keeping the hotel alive, taking loans from people Evelyn didn't recognize. Men in expensive suits who toured the building at night and spoke in low voices. The hotel was bleeding money, but Robert kept pouring everything into it, including Evelyn's inheritance, including the college fund her parents left her. March 3rd, 2003. Sophie is 18 months old. She doesn't recognize Robert anymore. He came into the penthouse last night and didn't even look at her crib. He looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was something in his way. The next few entries were smudged, water damage, or tears. March 20th, 2003. I'm leaving. I packed everything I can carry, but Robert found the suitcase. He locked the penthouse door from the outside. He said, I'm not thinking clearly. He said I need rest. He'll bring food later. I'm scared. Claire's hands were trembling now. She looked at the crib again, at the mobile still turning. March 27th, 2003. It's been a week. He brings food once a day. Sophie is crying all the time. I tried to break the window, but it's reinforced. I screamed until my voice gave out. No one hears. This floor is too high. The hotel is too empty. The date stopped for a while. Then one final entry. The handwriting barely legible. April 9th, 2003. I'm too weak now. Sophie stopped crying 2 days ago. I think I can't write it. If someone finds this, know that I tried. Know that I loved her. And know that Robert Marsh is not a man. He's something that wears a man's face. This hotel is his religion, and he'll sacrifice anything to keep it breathing. Don't let it take you too. The journal ended there. Claire dropped it. The thud echoed in the empty room. She backed away from the crib, her mind racing. Evelyn Marsh. Sophie Marsh. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and searched the names. The results loaded slowly. Then she saw it. A news article from April 2003. Local woman and infant daughter missing. Husband pleads for their safe return. There was a photo. Robert Marsh, standing in front of the Grandview Hotel, his face drawn with what the article called anguished concern. But Claire looked at his eyes, flat, empty. The article said Evelyn had a history of postpartum struggles. That she'd taken the baby and disappeared in the night. Robert claimed he'd woken up and they were just gone. He'd organized search parties, put up flyers. The case went cold within 6 months. Robert Marsh died in 2019. Heart failure. The hotel had been in probate ever since. Claire's chest felt like it was caving in. She looked back at the crib, at the journal on the floor. Evelyn never left this room. Neither did Sophie. That's why the door was locked for a decade. That's why the real estate agent wouldn't talk about it. She needed to call someone, the police. But what would she say? She found a journal that suggested a murder from 20 years ago in a building she now owned. They'd investigate. They'd tear this place apart. The loan, the investment. Everything she'd bet on this place would collapse before it even started. Mia's face flashed in her mind. Her daughter sleeping downstairs, trusting her mother to keep them safe. Claire picked up the journal. She walked to the window and looked out at the dark Pennsylvania hills. The Grandview Hotel had eaten Evelyn's life. It had swallowed her whole and kept standing. And now it was Claire's. She thought about calling the police. She thought about it for a long time. Then she thought about Mia's school supplies running out, about the eviction notice from the old apartment, about every door that had closed in her face over the past 3 years. About being a single mother in a system that punished you for needing help. Claire closed the journal. She put it back in the crib, covered it with the blanket, and walked out of the penthouse. She locked the door from the outside this time. And she made a decision that would hollow her out from the inside for the rest of her life. She would renovate the hotel, she would succeed, and she would never, ever go back to that room. The weeks that followed were brutal. Claire worked 16-hour days, painted walls, fixed plumbing, hired a contractor for the electrical work she couldn't do herself. Mia adjusted better than expected, making friends with the contractor's daughter, playing in the hallways that slowly transformed from decay into possibility. But at night, Claire heard things, footsteps on the floor above her, the sound of something rolling back and forth, a mobile turning. She told herself it was the pipes. Old buildings settle. That's what they do. She opened the first floor to guests in late summer. Just 4 rooms, but they were clean and cheap and close enough to the highway that truckers started spreading the word. Money trickled in, enough to make the loan payment, enough to buy Mia new shoes. One night in September, a guest came to the front desk, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She said she'd stayed at the Grandview back in 2002. She asked if the penthouse was still closed. Claire's blood went cold. "Why do you ask?" The woman smiled, but it was sad. "I was here the week that poor girl went missing. Evelyn Marsh. Sweet thing. I saw her husband lock her up there, saw him carry groceries up once a day like he was feeding a dog. I told the front desk manager, but he said it wasn't my business. Said Mr. Marsh was going through a rough patch and his wife needed space." She paused. "I left the next day. I've regretted it for 20 years. Claire's hands gripped the desk. "Did you tell the police?" "I tried after I saw the news, but I was just a guest passing through. No proof. And Robert Marsh had friends in this town, people who owed him favors." The woman's eyes glistened. "I'm glad someone finally bought this place. Maybe you can give it a better story than the one it has." After the woman left, Claire went upstairs. Not to the penthouse, to the 8th floor, Robert's old office. She'd avoided it during renovations, focusing on guest rooms instead. But now she needed to see it. The door was unlocked. Inside, the walls were covered in framed newspaper clippings, the Grandview's glory days, awards, photos of politicians shaking Robert's hand. But in the corner there was a filing cabinet. Claire opened it. Financial records, loans from shell companies with names like Pinnacle Holdings and Crestview Management, amounts that made her stomach turn. Robert had been drowning in debt. The hotel wasn't a legacy. It was an anchor tied to his neck, pulling him under. And Evelyn's inheritance had been the last thing keeping him afloat. Claire found a folder marked Personal. Inside were documents, life insurance policies. Evelyn's name, Sophie's name. Both policies had been cashed out in 2004, a year after they disappeared. The beneficiary, Robert Marsh. He hadn't just locked them away. He'd erased them, reported them missing, collected the insurance, kept the hotel running on their ghosts. Claire sat on the floor of that office and stared at the papers until the sun came up. Then she made her second decision. She called a journalist, not the police. A freelance investigator named Marcus Chen, who specialized in cold cases. She sent him everything. The journal, the financial records, the insurance documents. She told him where to look if he wanted to search the penthouse more thoroughly. Marcus published the story 3 months later. It went viral. The hotel that hid a murder, how Robert Marsh built his legacy on his family's graves. The state police exhumed the walls of the penthouse. They found remains behind the drywall in the closet. Evelyn and Sophie Marsh, exactly where Claire suspected they'd be. The Grandview Hotel became famous for all the wrong reasons. Guests cancelled. Urban explorers showed up with cameras. Claire's investment turned into a spectacle. But she didn't run. She held a press conference. She said that Evelyn Marsh deserved to be remembered as more than a victim, that Sophie deserved a headstone with her real name, not just missing. She announced that 10% of all future hotel profits would go to a fund for single mothers in Ashford trying to escape dangerous situations. Not a foundation, not a charity with overhead and board meetings, just a fund, quiet, direct, real. It didn't fix what happened. It didn't bring them back. But it was something the hotel survived barely. It became a niche destination for people interested in true crime, which made Claire's skin crawl, but it paid the bills. Mia grew up knowing the truth, knowing that her mother had a chance to bury a secret, and chose to dig it up instead. On the anniversary of the discovery, Claire went back to the penthouse one last time. The crib was gone. The walls had been repaired. It was just an empty room now. But she stood by the window and looked out at the same view Evelyn must have seen every day of her captivity. "I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner," Claire whispered to the air. "I'm sorry I thought about letting you stay hidden." The room was silent. No footsteps, no mobile turning. Just the hum of traffic far below and the weight of choices that never stop pressing down. Claire locked the penthouse door for the last time. She put the key in a safe deposit box at the bank with instructions that it should never be opened again. Some rooms aren't meant to be used, some stories aren't meant to be forgotten, and some chances you take don't lead to fresh starts. They lead to the truth, which is harder, colder, and the only thing worth finding.